This is Jocko Podcast number 55 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
Well, our last podcast, which I guess is no surprise at this point, went a little long. We did not have room for Q&A. So because of that, we will dedicate podcast number 55 today to Q&A. Questions from the interwebs. Thanks to everyone that has submitted questions through the interwebs so that we can attempt to answer some of them.
Yeah.
And with that, Echo Charles.
Yes.
Questions from the interwebs.
Roger.
What do you got?
Well, first question is, how important is purpose, reason, or cause in being successful? Like your purpose.
Right. Well, clearly purpose and reason and cause are extremely important. This is the why of your actions. This is knowing why you're doing what you're doing. This is the commander's intent. And so you absolutely these are important. If you don't know why you're doing something, well then let me ask you a question. Why are you doing something? It's very clear, it's very simple to understand. So yeah, you got to know if you don't know why you're doing something, then what are you going to do when you hit an obstacle? You're going to stop. What adaptations are you going to make when things go wrong to overcome them? You're not going to make any because you don't know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So if you have no reason for doing something, you're not going to do it. So you got to have a long-term goal. We got to understand the underlying purpose of what you're doing. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be rigid, because it doesn't have to be rigid. You know, I'll tell you an interesting case as an example. I'll give you is my own case, right? So, of course, you know, I'm all about planning and always having a long-term plan and all that stuff. But to be honest with you, the situation that I'm in right now as a human, I didn't have a long-term plan for this. You know, Leif and I wrote the book. I had no intention of writing a book. That kind of happened, you know, because people were asking us, and as we worked with businesses, they said, you have this stuff written down. So we ended up writing the book. Once we wrote it, we thought maybe we'd be handing it out when we go and work with companies. Literary agents saw it today. Let me show this to some publishers. Publishers saw it, said, let us publish this. Okay, so you figure you're going to publish it. Well, even when you publish a book, you don't expect that a bunch of people are going to read it. You expect that you're going to have a book published, and that's cool. But it ended up doing really well. So that kind of happened. With that, all of a sudden I was on a couple of podcasts. Well, I didn't have any intention. When I went on Tim Ferriss's podcast, I didn't say to myself, this is going to propel me into my own podcast. Or Joe Rogan's podcast, I didn't say, now, you know, Joe Rogan's going to launch me into the podcast world. No. I didn't expect that, but it happened. And you know what? It happened. It made sense to me. Okay, these two guys are squared away. They're squared away in this particular genre, and they're recommending. My mind is open. Okay, let's try and make a podcast. Did I know that the podcast was going to be super popular? No, I just thought we were making a podcast so that, you know, the few people would want to listen to it. Cool. Then look what happens. Next thing you know, we're making tea. You know, next thing I'm making tea. I had no idea that tea would be part of my world. So all this stuff happened, right? But the goal, really the reason for me doing all this is still the same through the whole thing. And that is that I want to help people. I want to help people with something that the lessons that I've learned, I want to help them. So how can I do that? Well, you write them down. Okay, you wrote it down so people can read it. Great. How else can you help them? Oh, you can make a podcast so people can access it easily and cheaply. Cool, here you go. So the underlying goal, I want people to be healthy. Well, what's a good way to be healthy? Stop drinking Monster energy drinks. Stop drinking Red Bull 12 a day and start drinking something that's healthier. Oh, okay, cool. Jocko white tea, next thing you know. That's what we've got going on. So it's that's been my goal, and I haven't really, even though I strayed from what maybe the original path I thought I was going to take, I still stayed. My reason is the same, and I think that's what I'm saying. When your reason is clear and your purpose is clear, that's going to make your drive clear, and that's going to make you execute well because you know where you're going, you know where you want to be, you understand your purpose and why you're doing something, and that's what's going to help you be successful, in my opinion.
Do you think that like how, people, they'll be like, this is my why, and it'll be like their kids or something like that. Do you think that falls within this? Like, like reason, purpose, and all this stuff?
Yeah, I think that's the same general. The guy could have said purpose, reason, cause, why. I think that the question could have said that. I think that if your purpose is your kids, really clear example, right? And a lot of people might say that. Well, that's cool, but you're going to have to clarify that a little bit more, because if your purpose is your kids, then quit your job and just spend all day with your kids. Well, then obviously you're not supporting your kids, because now you can't afford to buy them food.
Yeah, it's like it seems like there's a lot of different.
So your goal should be taking good care of and providing for your children's now and in the future. Wow, okay, now that makes sense. Now you're looking long term, short term. You know that you have to work hard now. You know you have to make investments for them. So that's the kind of thing. That's beyond just a simple, I'm doing this for my kids. Because what are you doing for your kids? What are you trying to achieve for them?
Yeah. So like, for using that example, like, this is my why, it's my daughter. It's less, this is why I'm, writing a book. It's more, this is why I can endure the hard days, or this is why I'm going to continue to work hard, kind of thing, at whatever it is I'm doing.
Yeah, you just have an underlying reason. That's the question, and I think that's the answer. Yes.
Yeah.
It's I should have just answered that in 2 words. I should have said, how important is purpose, reason, cause, and being successful? Answer, very important. There you go.
You can have a lot of different reasons too, or like a few core, more than one is what I'm saying.
Yeah, what I'd say, if there's anything to be taken away from this question, it is if you don't feel, here's I would say the takeaway. If you don't feel some kind of drive in your life, if you don't feel passionate about something, if you feel like you're wandering and meandering through the world, then it's time to assess. Then it's time to say, okay, what is my reason? What am I trying to do? What would I like to do in the world? Now we get something valuable here.
Yeah.
We all know that you got to have a purpose. You all got to have a reason. So if you feel yourself meandering down the path with no reason, no purpose, dig in and find one.
Yeah.